Hello and welcome back to the Car Guy Coffee Podcast, where we are brewing solutions to upshift and uplift you today. This brew has been brought to you by our friends at Fixed Ops Digital, 321 Ignition, M1 Data and Analytics, Dealership Toolkit, VinQ, and NAVDAC, Beyond Mobile First. If you want more information about how to be a sponsor or just want more of the brew, go to carguycoffee.com. Let's brew! What's happening, car guys and car gals? Good morning. This is Lou Ramirez, the car guy.
And this is Fredlin Arts, the subprime hero.
And we are brewing solutions on the Car Guy Coffee Podcast. And we have an incredible guest.
Yes, we do.
Today. We are so honored for who is jumping up inside of the cafe. Fred, I am pumped up and excited. I know that you are. And y'all need to be too. So do us a favor and tag a car guy.
Tag a car girl.
And share.
It's important that we do this because we have some information today that's going to be amazing. We have somebody that's going to tell you about his journey, about how he got to where he's at today. And man, I'm going to tell you, a lot of times we just see where they're at today and we're like, man, it's overnight success. And it's never an overnight success. It takes work. The suddenlies take quite a bit of time to make happen, right? And we're so excited to have Jonathan Dawson in the house. JD, so you give him two initials is all you need with this guy. That's how important he is. This guy is something that's doing, he's somebody, I should say, not something. He's somebody who's doing something in this business right now that's getting me excited. He's out there helping people become better at what they do. He's teaching them new tactics and techniques. I got to see him speak a couple times over at the NIADA, and man, he blew my mind with what he was talking about. Really, it's the little things that make a difference, and Jonathan's really figured out how to make the little things work for you. So, folks, get ready for a great morning, get ready for some great information, and get ready to have a great time, because I know I'm ready to go.
I know I'm ready. So let's go ahead and get this cooking. Car guys and car gals, we are not going to delay the intro. You heard a couple of messages from our sponsors, but there are more that are trying to bring you the great news that this show is bringing you. But folks, I cannot stop this excitement that's inside of me. This five-liner is about to be underway, and your mind is about to be blown. You are about to be encouraged, and there's about to be so much poured inside of your cup that you're just going to have to sip on up. So let's get this rocking. Ladies and gentlemen, car guys and car gals and solutionaries all throughout the world, help us in welcoming the one, the only, Jonathan Dawson! Yeah!
There he is. Look at him, man.
Hey!
Huh?
Good morning, man. Look at him. He's getting down. He's jigging. He's doing.
Come on now.
That's right. Get that move.
Man, we appreciate you for being here this morning. We appreciate what you're going to be bringing for us this morning, man. And we appreciate what you brought to this business up to this point and look forward to watching you do some more, man. Thank you for being here. How are you this morning?
You know, I'm fantastic. I am in Albany, New York. I had a full day yesterday training with an entire sales team between two stores. You know, it's the 27th of the month yesterday, Monday, the last Monday of the month, and I am at two different dealerships. We closed at 8. I left there, I think, I want to say almost 9. And you know, it's awesome. It's awesome. But I had originally, when I had booked this trip, I had originally booked a morning flight that would land me back in Atlanta right at 8:30. But because I told y'all that I would be here for you, I pushed my flight back, so I'm leaving a little bit later. So I am missing my breakfast with Bubbles, my little baby girl. I'm missing that for y'all. So let's get this thing going and let's make sure we make a difference and add massive value, because if I'm going to miss my breakfast with my baby, I want to make a difference in someone's life.
Come on.
And
so
you're already doing it, man. You're doing it in my life, so you've already done that. So thank you so much. That's one step. So let's keep this thing moving, and I'm excited to change some lives and to impact some people today. And that's what it's all about. And that's what Jonathan Dawson does every single day when he wakes up. He's looking for a way to impact. And I appreciate that about you. And that's why we had to have you on the show. We've been doing this Women in Automotive series, but when Jonathan Dawson gave me an opportunity to put him on the show, I'm going to put you on the show. So it's just as much as you moved around your schedule, we did too for you, brother, because you mean that much to us. And thank you. You honor us by doing that. And it means so much to us. So we're not going to waste your time. We're just going to get straight to it, man.
That's right.
Let's get this Forgive, Focus, Fly, because in order to be part of the certified solutionary crew, you got to learn a secret handshake, right, Lou? Why don't you explain that secret handshake to him real quick?
So we have been forgiven much, so we forgive. And inside of that action, we get the opportunity with our freed up hands where we're no longer holding on to the weight of unforgiveness.
Right.
We then get the chance to focus. And once we're focused on where it is that we're going, our goals, our future, we get to reach and stretch out in faith and begin to fly. And once we're up there, we keep growing and keep growing. So on 3, car guys and car gals, and all you incredible solutionaries out there, we have the one, the only Jonathan Dawson. Forgive focusing and flying with us. He's about to be part of the family. So let's do it. Put the hands on the shoulders one time. And on 3, 1, 2, 3, forgive,
focus,
fly,
and keep growing.
keep growing. Yeah, that's right. Now we're doing it. Now we're
Yes, sir. You know the deal. Jonathan Dawson, thank you for honoring us with that.
Here we
I
go.
love this, man. Life
Yes.
is so good.
Heck
Life is
yeah.
great. God is great. And we are so thankful to have Jonathan here today. We're going to get straight to the questions. Your first question I'm going to hit you with is, what is your drive? What is your purpose? What makes you wake up every day and try to make an impact in people's lives?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, I get asked a version of this quite often. A salesperson or manager will say sometimes, John, what drives you or where's your motivation come from? And I give them the same 3 answers. Give you the same 3 answers because until I get a better answer, these are my answers. My first motivator is I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm fully aware that I'm going to die. I am aware that it'll likely happen before I plan on it happening. I'm aware it'll likely happen before I want it to. And it'll even possibly happen without me knowing it's going to happen. So I'm fully aware of that. And with that comes a revelation or a knowledge to me because I'm convinced in the gospel. I'm convinced that part of that comes with a great deal of hope, but part of it also comes with a great deal of accountability. One day I'll stand before my Creator and I'll give an account for my life. I'll have to answer for what I did with the things that I was given and what I did with the time that I was given. And when I stand before my God and have to give an answer, I want to be able to give an answer that's pleasing. And I want my God to say, good and faithful servant, enter into my rest. So I don't work I don't do what I do to earn God's grace or favor. It's not out of any sense of I'm buying a ticket through it, but it's out of response to it. It's that I have an obligation and a responsibility because I've been given much, and whom's been given much, just like who's been forgiven much. Who's been given much is responsible to give much. And so part of my answer is simple. The clock is ticking. It's going backwards. And soon and very soon and way too soon, I'll be gone. And I'd like to think that that when I have to give an account for it, I'd like to think that I'll be able to say I honestly was living on mission. So I'm on a mission to save the world one salesperson at a time until God gives me a different one. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm in Albany on the 27th of a month, working with the sales team, trying to fulfill that. That's the first answer. The second answer is I have a wife and I have a daughter, and I have an obligation to them to provide the best possible return on time when I'm not with them. Because much as I enjoy this time with you or with a sales team or wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, as much as I enjoy the person I'm sitting across from me, they're not my wife and they're not my daughter, who right now outrank everyone else in the universe as far as people I love and care about. So I tell people all the time, my wife, she outranks you, my daughter, she outranks you, and I want to live that way, which means I have to be purposeful, because while I'm not with them, I have to provide a good return on that time. And while I'm with them, I have to have a clear conscience that while I was not with them, it was worth it, right? So I tell salespeople this all the time. They live as a house divided, and a house divided will not stand. When they're at work, they're not fully present at work. They're not truly committed to what they do. They dabble in what they do, and they're not fully functional at what they're doing. They're not good stewards of their time. And because they're not, they don't reap the harvest and the reward they could get, that they often would get if they do what they're supposed to do. So they don't do that. So when they go home, here's the house divided. When they go home, they're constantly aware of what they should have been doing at work and what they missed opportunity. And I need to be at work because I need to hit that unit. I need to get to that number. So when they're at home, they think about work. When they're at work, they feel like they should be at home. While at work, unproductive, they think about the time they're missing at home. They're not at the baseball game. They're not at the, they're not at the breakfast table, whatever it is that they're not able to do. And average people live house divided. I don't want to live that life. I'm not going to be a house divided. And so when I'm functional away from home, I'm on mission and on purpose, so that when I'm at home, I can provide the best possible version of me at home as well. So that's answer number two. Answer number three is, quite frankly, people like you. People out there who have put their trust and faith in me, who've given me time, who've given me attention, who've given me opportunity, who've given me trust. And again, as a steward, I have to provide for those people who've entrusted me an opportunity to serve them. So I feel an obligation to my clients, to my students. I feel an obligation to, relatively speaking, my audience. I feel an obligation that I owe them a version of myself that adds value. So those are the three reasons I do what I do. Until I have new reasons, those are my reasons.
Absolutely love it. Very, very, very powerful reasons. And mix those three together becomes super powerful. And I love that, having that type of passion inside your heart, it just being able to do those things. And really what it all translates to is just being the best version of yourself, always looking to be the best father, the best husband, the best leader, the best influencer, the best, coworker, the best friend, all those things all added together into one pot. It's just constant growth. You're always looking for ways to tweak yourself, room for improvement everywhere, right? And I absolutely love that. That was a great explanation, breaking it down to three pieces like that. And I agree. My son and my wife, they are number one. They are the boss, right? They are definitely higher ranking than anyone else in my life. But I definitely understand the value of all the people in my life, to include the audience that we have, because it keeps me accountable. It keeps me moving. It keeps me motivated. So I love that, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that with us. And folks, I'm sure you guys got a piece of that. If you're struggling trying to figure out what motivates you, you just got to look around you. Look for things that you love. And when you look for those things that you love, they will motivate you. But find ways and honor those people and honor those things. So, man, love that. I love that you're honoring the way you honor Jonathan. Thanks for being here. Man, what a great
I mean, that's folks, that's the coffee, that's the cream, and that's the sweetener, all inside of one cup.
Yes,
okay, making sure that he has a three-part understanding of his why. Folks, some of you have to make sure that you channel in on one thing to focus on why it is that you do what you do. And this is what we want to consistently bring to you. It's incredible people like Jonathan that achieve great things, see great things achieved in other people, and is completely aware of his own mortality, completely aware of his obligation and his privilege to love his family, and then completely aware of what it is that he's birthing inside of an industry where people like Fred and I can be encouraged, and we can do what it is that we do. Sellchology is more than just doing the things and plugging the widgets of getting the job done, right? It's making the connections to people. And he does that in an incredible way, whether it's a hug that takes you up off of the ground or it's
which are the best hugs ever.
Stage, folks. Jonathan is an incredible solutionary that we honor and we respect. And so many of you are jumping in here, incredible car guys and car gals. I want to say good morning to some of you that are here. James Bernard, what's happening, brother? So excited to see you and hear from you this morning. Says, what's up, fam? Frank Crinity.
What up, Frank Crinity? What's going on,
How
buddy?
are you, sir? Welcome to the Partey and the Cafe.
That's another guy I think you guys might know, Frank.
Yes, you might have heard of him.
Might have heard of him or something.
I don't know. Sean Wright, what's
up,
going
Sean?
on, brother? How are you? What's happening, Facebook user? Love you, whoever it is that you are. Jason Grimes, what's up, brother? Love you, appreciate you.
Damn.
And what's happening, Tony? How are you?
Tony, what's going on, man?
Everyone.
Appreciate you for being here this morning.
Larry,
what's going on?
what's going on, Larry?
What's up, Larry?
How are you? And Facebook user again, hey, how are you?
Time is a privilege. 100%
and
it is.
Time is a big piece of the seed, time, and harvest.
Amen.
And that's the part where we get lost. That's the part where we get kind of stuck in not being able to go to the next level because of time, right? The children of Israel circled around the wilderness for so much time until they could be prepared. Even if it was just a small seed, or just a small remnant that was able to go into glory, that's the same thing here inside of the industry. There's only so many of us that are going to go to that next level.
Right.
There's only so many of us that are going to be able to go into the promised land of where the car business is even going now. But we have to release Egypt. We have to release that mindset. And I love what it is that John constantly does is that he makes sure that you engage with your mind, your heart, and then bring action to it all. And John, I want to ask you something that I don't know if anybody's ever asked before. Maybe they have. Surely they have at some point or another. But brother, what has brought you to this incredible industry? What has brought you to the car business?
Oh, man. Well, ultimately, the short answer is God ordained it. That's the short answer. Looking back, I think a lot of people at some point in their life will come to a point where they'll look at their life and realize that God was in the back orchestrating some things. All of a sudden, you look at the sovereign hand of God on things, and in the moment, you maybe don't recognize it. But for me, it was actually fairly clear in that the way that I was brought to the car business was kind of weird. Let me kind of give you the story. So I'm 22 years old. I moved to Kansas. My wife has her master's program that she's about to complete. It's a 2-year program. We had gotten married. We moved to Kansas for her master's program. We have a U-Haul truck in the driveway. I wake up, kiss my newlywed bride, and say, hey, I'm going to go open up a checking account and check out the town and see what I want to do. Now, prior to that moment, I had successfully been in door-to-door sales. I was a door-to-door sales trainer for a door-to-door sales company. We had like 60-something reps across several states. I was the original salesman for that door-to-door company. I was the first salesman in the company. I eventually became the top salesperson, and then as we grew, retained the title of top salesperson, and eventually then was given the role of sales trainer while still being the top salesperson, teaching them what I was doing. So that was all from the age of basically 17 to 22 that I was doing that. So for 5 years, I did door-to-door sales off and on with that job. Then I was also a real estate investor prior to moving as well. So I had just come out of door-to-door sales, come out of doing real estate, and moved to Kansas. When I got there into this little town, Emporia, Kansas, I went to open up a bank account. And while at the checking counter, while filling out documentation for a checking account, I hear what now I clearly recognize in my spirit was God, but in the moment, a random thought that made no sense to me. I hear, go sell cars. And when I say I hear, what I mean is like you have like this random thought in your head or heart, and you just kind of go, that's random. Like, where's this coming from? Like, it's not like this audible booming over the microphone. It was just like, go sell cars. Like inside of me, like this thought that's not from me, go sell cars. And I remember thinking in the moment when that happened, I remember having this thought, like, what a bizarre thought to have. Like, I have no desire to sell cars of any kind. Like, I don't want to be a car salesman, and that's random. And then as I'm filling the documentation again, a second time, I hear it again, go sell cars. And I'm thinking, wow. And actually, like, I'm just filling out documents, but I'm having an internal dialogue in my head. I'm like, wow, why would I want to go sell cars? Like, I know nothing about cars. Like, I don't know the difference between a 4-cylinder and a V6, except one has 4, one has 6, and one has a V on something. Like, I don't know what that means. I know nothing about cars. And the only experiences I've had at dealerships were negative. Like the last time, actually one of the vehicles I'm driving at that point in my life, probably actually the one in the parking lot, was bought because when I shopped for a car, I had such a terrible experience. I actually went across the street, bought a car from across the street, drove my new car back to the other dealership, drove through the parking lot screaming at the top of my lungs, these people are con artists and rip-off artists, don't go here, go across the street. Like, that's a true story. Like, I was so bad. I hated the car buying experience. I had no desire. Then third time, go sell cars. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why? That's random. And then, of course, at some point you kind of go, what are you saying? Are you saying this? Is this coming from you? Because this isn't me. And I said to the lady at the bank, I said, where's the local dealerships in town? She said, there's only 3 of them. You can't miss them. They're right down the road. Like, go there and take a right. And they're all there. And so I walk into a dealership. It's a Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, Jeep, Toyota dealership. And this is August 2020. And I walk into this dealership, and on the other side of the show floor, while I'm walking in on one side, on the other side is a man physically throwing another man out of the building. Grabbed by the back of the show, like, throwing a guy out of the building. And he says, go on, get out then. I don't need you. And I'm like, what's going on? So I go up to the receptionist. I'm like, hey, can I talk to somebody about a job? And she says, yeah. She says, 1 second. Hey, Seth, this man wants to talk to you. Well, the gentleman throwing someone out of the building was Seth. Seth Hively, my manager, my soon-to-be manager. He's the manager. He's a towering man. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3". You met me. I'm a big guy. He made me feel small. He made me feel small. And he meets me. He's got a big old cowboy hat on. He's got a big old thick red mustache like this, and he grabs me and crushes my hand like this when he shakes my hand like this. You ever met somebody who shakes your hand like this?
Yeah, you.
So I learned it from Seth. so he crushes my hand, He says, my name's Seth Hiley, son. What can I do you for? And I said, and this is where it's funny, where God shows up sometimes. I remember this like it was like literally 5 seconds ago. I remember this. I said, hi there, sir. My name is Jonathan Dawson. Today I will have a job selling cars. It'll be for you or your competition, and you don't want me working for your competition. I wanted to interview you and see if I want to work here. You have to understand, I had no preparation of saying that in that moment. I had no preparation that I would say that. When I said that, I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, looking down at myself going, who is saying that? What is going on? And he says, tell me about yourself, son. And we sit down and anyways, long story short of that, I get in the car business. And that is how I started in the business. And many people who do know my story, if you followed me and you've heard this story, I apologize, but it's just the story, is, I sold 10 cars the first 12 days, half the month. I started in the middle of the month, sold 10 cars, 12 days. I thought I was the stuff. Like I thought, well, this is easy, this cakewalk, right? And that market in that town, right, that already put me in the top half of the sales floor. Then next month, sales meeting starts, and everybody goes around the room. What's your goal? And of course, I can do basic math. If I did 10 in 12 days, I got a whole month. 20 cars. That's not hard. So I set a goal of 20. I didn't sell 20. I sold 12. Then next month, I adjust my goal to 15, and I sell 3, and I get fired. And the owner calls me in the office and basically says, hey, you're sucking up my air conditioning. You're wasting space in my building. I don't need guys like you. Pack up and get out of my store. And I get blown out. And what's really funny about that is I actually had a check. This is one of my biggest regrets of the car business. One of my biggest regrets of my entire time in the auto industry is I had a check that was given to me for 0.00 from that dealer for that month that I sold 3 cars. They took out taxes, insurance, some other charges for being new, and they gave me a check for 0. And it had a sticky note attached that was signed that said, you owe us whatever it was, like something like whatever it was, $342.46 or something. But it was you owe us some money. And it was signed by Michelle, the office manager. It said, and here's what it said. It said, unless you're fired. You owe us this money unless you're fired. So I'm opening up my check after selling 3 cars that month. I open up the check. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at a check for 0 with a sticky note that says, you owe us money unless you're fired. Only to then get paged over the intercom, John Dawson at Craig's office, John Dawson at Craig's office. I get called into Craig's office, the owner, and literally standing in the doorway, he fires me and says, pack up your stuff and get out of my store. And now here I am, a 22-year-old newlywed kid who is really honestly thinking, how do I go home and explain to my newlywed bride that I just spent 60 hours a week away from her?
Yeah.
And not only did I not produce a result, I failed in that I owe the store money or I got fired. And I have to now go home and look her in the eyes and tell her, I'm unemployed, I have no money, and I'm a failure. And I'm standing in the doorway and I'm panicking and I'm thinking, not me, not today. And so I put on my selling shoes out of pure desperation in the doorway, and I said, hey, give me a second chance. Like, let me prove, I can prove you wrong. I can do this. I've never failed at anything. Like, I don't fail at things. I don't know what happened, but it won't happen again. And he says, basically, you have to the end of the day, prove me wrong, get out of my office. So I walked out behind the dealership, and this is where I had my come to Jesus moment. Anyone watching this, most of you can recognize a moment in your life where you came to the end of yourself. You came to a place of desperation, a place of brokenness, a place of why me, why now, why this? And for me, in that season of my life, in that time, to be in that place, I was like, what am I doing here? Because I truly felt like looking back, I felt like God had brought me there, and I had success in the very beginning, and now I have a 3-car month. I have no money, and I have, I'm a total failure. I look like an idiot. And I'm out in the back of the dealership. I'm actually having the fist towards heaven altercation with Jesus. I'm screaming at the sky. What am I doing here? This place sucks. There's no traffic. There's no training. And again, I hear, and this time it pierced me. This time I knew who was speaking. And this time I heard a very simple, powerful voice say this: it's all your fault. And I looked up and I remember feeling like, how could you possibly say that? Are you even remotely paying attention to what's going on down here? How is this my fault that there's no traffic? How is it my fault there's no training? How is it my fault that my manager is a bully and my other manager is a liar? How is this my fault? And again, I hear it. It's all your fault. And again, the second time it hit me and I said, no, it's not. It's not my fault that customers are liars. It's not my fault that my coworkers are manipulative. It's not my fault that no one's taught me what to do. It's not my fault that I'm here with no opportunities because everyone who's been here has been here for freaking 10 years and every customer's here to see one of those guys and there's no traffic. And how is this my fault? And again, the third time, it's all your fault. And that's the moment. That's when it broke. Something inside my spirit broke, something inside my heart. And that's what I realized. Like it really was. It was my fault that I wasn't working unto God. I was working unto men. I was not a steward of my time. I showed up to see what would happen. I came without a plan. I came unprepared. I wasn't working in a way that honored anyone. I was just an employee passing time. My wife had a 2-year program. In my mind, honestly, I didn't have any desire to be in the car business. I didn't like my job. I didn't like what I was doing. To give you context, guys, I would pull up to my dealership and we had to clock in every morning. And whoever was clocked in late, they checked it. Whoever clocked in late had to buy breakfast for everyone. That was our rule. So if you clock in at 8:01, 8:01, you buy everyone breakfast. So I had my clock set perfectly attuned to the clock for the clock in and my vehicle. And I would pull up to the dealership and I would literally sit in my vehicle to the very last moment that I had to get out to go clock in because I didn't want to spend one more minute at the dealership than I had to. That's how much I despised where I worked. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. It was a job I was putting myself through. And in that moment, when I heard that in my heart and I said, it's all your fault. And that's when I made a decision that changed my entire life. And indirectly and directly has changed the life now of thousands of people. But it was a simple decision. I said, today will be the day from now on. God, teach me how to do this in a way that honors you. Teach me how to do this in a way that honors my employer. Teach me how to do this in a way that honors my customer. And if you'll show me how to do this in a way that honors my God, my employer, my customers, if you show me a way, I will do it. And I'll become the number one salesperson in this dealership, number one salesperson in this town. And I will change the way people buy cars if you will teach me that. And that was the desperate cry of a 22-year-old kid who had no money, sitting in the back of a dealership, screaming at the clouds and asking God to save him. And that's when it turned around. And from that point forward, I came on mission. I started living on mission. I had a purpose. And that's the only reason probably you and I are talking on a StreamYard at 8:30 in the morning. That's the only reason, is because of that moment and the decisions I made after that.
Man, and it's powerful decisions that we make. I'm glad that you sat there and you spoke with God that morning.
Yes.
And that you got to look up and you found that and you heard that, because you're right. It is all our fault. We have the decision every single day when we wake up how we can handle it. Doesn't matter how great your management, how bad your management, how bad your inventory is, how bad the customer base is. It's all about what you put into it. I love that, Jonathan. What a testimony, folks. Did you hear that? Did you feel that? Yeah, we have the number one sales trainer in the world talking about he was getting fired from selling cars because he sold only 3 cars, guys and gals. Listen to that. That's okay. Here's the deal. We all have moments of what we would call failures, but that's not a failure if you learn from it, if you grow from it, if you speak to God and you ask for his advice. He will speak to you and he will give you the right path. The inner dialogue that we have inside of ourselves is our talking with God. And I've kind of learned that myself too. And it's funny that you're talking about, I feel like all this is meant to be this whole conversation, because I've been preaching that whole inner voice thing a lot lately. And it's a big deal. Listen to that sometimes. You really have to. We push that to the side. Don't do that. But we do it anyway. Or do that and we don't do it. It's one of those things that we have to really listen to it. It is God speaking to you. He's telling you it is time for you to fly. And Jonathan, I'm so thankful that you had that conversation. I'm so thankful that you were at that bank, that you were there trying to open up an account and you kept hearing, go sell cars. I love that. And I think that's great, because we are so thankful that you're in this business doing that, or we wouldn't be having this conversation this morning. And if we were, it wouldn't be about this. It'd be about something completely different. And I'm so excited that we got to hear this story. Folks, please get inspired by this type of stuff, because that's what inspires me, to hear things like that. And I know that when I hear that, I know I'm on the right path, that I'm taking the right steps. Because look at that. He's talking about he was 22 years old. had no idea what he's doing. He was newlywed. He was trying to do the right things, and it just wasn't working. And it was because, like he said, he wasn't doing it through his faith in God. He was just doing it to try to just better himself only, right? And I love that. And that's great, man. What a great story. That leads right into my next question. Unless you have something.
But yeah, I just want to touch that for those of you that are listening, for those of you that are watching, for those of you that are digesting this.
Yes.
It is so important that you understand the responsibility it is that you have. So many times we do find ourselves with our fist up to heaven, so mad at what God has done inside of our life, when I want to encourage each and every one of you, because he loves you, because he loves you, because he loves you. He wants good things for you, better than you can ask or imagine, better than you can think or dream. He wants those things for you.
Amen.
Understand, he's given you this earth. This dominion of this earth is ours. No different than if I give my child a bicycle, a bedroom, a car. It's their responsibility to take care of it. It's their responsibility to put gas in it. It's their responsibility to care for it. If we want to blame the whatever's happening in this earth, right, as far as global warming, any of these other things, this is our earth. We're responsible for it. The climate that's inside of your dealership, inside of your business, inside of your cubicle, inside of your finances is your responsibility. It's been given to you. And it is your responsibility to take ownership of it and understand that you have the same power that heaven has to activate things inside of this earth. We can broker the power from heaven here on earth if we actually take ownership of it and understand Daddy gave us this opportunity. Daddy gave us this chance. And sometimes Daddy's going to put a finger back in our face to say, you're the one messing this up. You're the one that can fix this. And I've given you the authority and the power to do so. And that's exactly what the industry needs. So long, we've been waiting for fish to jump inside of our boat. That's been the way that we've operated the car business. Please jump up onto my lot and hopefully I learn how to process you right? Instead of actually working with the nets, instead of actually being strategic with the lines that we put out, instead of working together and taking ownership of what it is that we have. There was nothing that was magical about Jesus saying, throw the nets on the other side. These were fishermen. For those of you that know that story, these were fishermen. They understood how to throw a net on the left side, the right side, the front side, the back side. They understood it, but it was totally different when Jesus said to do it. It changed it all up when he said, now do it this way and watch what it is that happens. And so often we can brush that off. So often we can say, yeah, the car business? Yeah, no, there's nothing about heaven that's on that, right? There's so many stigmas. But understand, folks, the darkness is only there because the light hasn't shown up. And Jonathan Dawson is a light to the industry. And we appreciate that. That story is incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us all. I know that inspired some of you, every one of you. And this is why we honor people like Jonathan. This is what the industry needs, is people that are willing to take the up and also take the time to hear what it is that heaven's saying, and watch what happens when you get heaven pouring inside of your cup, folks. It'll really take things.
What I love the most is that he's taking the responsibility.
Yes.
Right. And then that's the key. You have to own it. You have to own everything that you do. You have to go after it. Because, faith without works is dead. We've heard this all the time, right? And it's so true. We can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't put work behind your faith, it's never going to come to you. We have to put the work behind there, because we only get what we put in. Right. So make sure that you guys realize that. And man, Jonathan, thank you for sharing that with us. Thanks for being so honest and candid about that. And I could ramble on all day about that whole situation, because it is powerful. Because a lot of people will go to a situation like, hey, you're done, and they give up. They're done. They're out of the automotive industry. If you would have done that, this industry would be different today. And I'm so glad that you're a part of it, because I love where the industry is going today. I believe there is a good path, and I believe that there is people that are coming together, and there's a great network of great automotive people that have a great heart that really want to see a change. And you're a big part of that, man. And I'm so glad that you're leading the way and showing us the way, man. It's amazing. So amazing. And that leads right into my next question. As we come up in this business, we talked about a lot of amazing things. We know your whys. You have 3 of those things, and they're so important, right? We also know what got you in this business. Well, while you've been in this business, who's been some of your greatest mentors? Because you're a great mentor to many. I mean, you're a mentor to me by far. Now that we've become friends, obviously, I'm going to be poking at you some more, learning more. But who's been a great mentor to you to help you get to where you're at today?
So the story of mentorship from my life is actually a little bit of a unique one. It comes with a little bit of pain. It starts with a little bit of pain. My father worked like 3 jobs when I was a little kid.
Mm.
And watching my dad work all the time as a young boy, I didn't understand it. Like my dad would come home and plop on the couch, watch TV, and that, be his decompression. And in many ways, my dad, didn't know how to manage his state. So, emotionally, he'd be tired and, he'd snap. He had more of a temperament of a volcano, he'd brew and brew and brew and then blow. And, so I grew up in an environment like that where I felt disconnected. I just did. I didn't have a relationship with my dad and my childhood. I don't have strong memories of relationship with my dad. And so as a young man, I sought out mentors from an early childhood, teenage boy, young boy, sought out mentors. So from the age of, 13, I looked to other men to teach me things about life. And I learned the importance of seeking wise counsel from a mentor. So I actually one day I made a list of my mentors, and it was like, I don't remember exactly, like 40 something people long or something. It was just a really, really, really long list of people who for a season and for a reason were placed in my life to speak to me. So when I get in the car business, one of my early mentors in the car business was when I was selling cars, a gentleman by the name of Dan Hong, who just retired after 32 years in the car business. He literally just retired like a couple months ago. And he was a salesperson at the same store that I sold at. Interesting little side story about that. So after selling cars and failing and getting fired, and then giving a second chance, and then staying at the dealership, I anyway ended up selling cars and became a top salesperson. And when I left the store, my owner, after I had started my training company, my owner called me up one day and said, "Hey, I've been talking to the guys, and I asked them, would it be weird if Dawson, came back to the store, but this time as a trainer? Would it be weird if like he was our trainer and taught us what he did while he was here and what he's learned since?" And one of my great honors in life was actually to be able to sit, or in this case, to stand at the front of a room in front of salespeople and the owner and the managers that I sold alongside, and to now be the trainer of them on what I did while I sold alongside them. But Dan was one of my first mentors. He was a gentleman of great integrity, great consistency, again, a commitment. I mean, 32 years in the business, meaning a committed man. He was back then, he's a little Asian dude, little Vietnamese guy. But he just had about him a way of doing things right. And I remember the wisdom he gave me actually when I was really frustrated in the beginning of my career. He said, "Kid, I tell you something. Grass may be greener on the other side of the fence." He said, "Water bill higher too." And so he was one of my first early mentors. I learned from him. When I got to the end of my 2 years at the dealership, I got recruited by a training company, and the training company that recruited me, I worked with for about 2 years. And the gentleman who owned that company is a guy named Mark Tewart. And Mark served as a mentor as well. There was a guy who trained me under Mark, a guy named Tony McGee. And Tony trained me when I first got in the field, and I was selling door-to-door sales seminars for dealerships. So I'd knock on a door and try to get your team to sign up for a seminar and come to one of my events, right? To come to this event. So when I was learning how to do that, I worked under a guy, Tony. Tony, started teaching me the ropes on that. Now, the thing is, like I said, I'd spent 5 years in door-to-door sales and as a sales trainer in the door-to-door space already. So the idea of training, the idea of door-to-door, the idea of selling something was something I was very, very comfortable with anyway. But I very, very quickly learned that. I worked for them with them for about 2 years, and then started basically what you now know as Sellchology. Got into the space of Sellchology, and honestly, as a new entrepreneur in the training space, I had no mentors. It was a very, very difficult thing because everybody, not everybody, that's not fair. It's an unfair way of describing it. Mm. What felt like everyone, what seemed like everyone, was operating from scarcity. What seemed and felt like was everybody operated from scarcity. Everybody saw everybody as a competition for the dealer's dollar. Everybody was in competition for the dealer's dollar. So nobody in the vendor space, like what we have is a community of even vendors now, which vendor side, you guys are a little bit on the vendor side, but the vendor side can feel very cliquish. Back then, it was, in my opinion, it was even more cliquish because we didn't have relationship building tools like this. And so it was really hard to feel any kind of community with anybody. But so in my early career, I had no clear mentor on what I was doing, no one to give me the path, because no one wanted me. Like if you were a trainer, you didn't want to teach another trainer how to sell training, because now what if the dealer hires them instead of you, right? That's something that that I severely lacked. I know it stunted my growth, but I sought out mentors. I asked for advice where I could, but I just found it was not very reciprocal. Nobody really wanted to. So I didn't really have any clear mentors. Now I had heroes, and what I would encourage you is there's a difference between a mentor, a coach, and a hero. You know, so I had heroes. I had people I aspired to be like. I had people I could model from a distance and look at them and go, okay, this is the direction I want to take myself professionally and from a presentation perspective, and I want to move myself in that direction. But mentors I didn't really have, which is why I'm grateful to say, and I'm thankful that there are a lot of people, and maybe even people watching this right now, who are vendors who will say, Jonathan has been a mentor to me. I have mentored dozens of vendors, dozens and dozens, even trainers. There are trainers who, if I listed them by name, who would, if you sat with them on a one-on-one, they would say, Jonathan has shaped and directed my entire success of my career as a trainer. And I have gladly done it because I didn't have that. No one operated. Again, it didn't feel like anyone was willing to operate from abundance. I operate from abundance. So I want you to win. I want you to take, I want you, if the client picks you, I want the client to win. And if they thought you were the way they would win, I'm happy. I want the client to win. So, but very few, unfortunately, at least, 20 years ago, very few people felt that way.
Man, and Jonathan, I absolutely love that. You are a man of my heart, and I'm falling in love with you more and more the way you talk here, because that's exactly the way I feel. As my cup starts to fill up, and as I'm able to once it starts to overflow and I'm able to pour into others, I want to do the same thing. I don't believe in competition. I know that there is competition out there, and it drives me. I guess I should believe in competition, but I also believe in community, and I believe that there's abundance for all of us. And if we all go after it, and when you find somebody out there somebody could be doing the exact same thing I'm doing, but if they're doing it with love and they're doing it to better this business and they're better to help others, I want to help them. And that's something that is beautiful. And when you do that, all it does is make you better. It just makes you more abundant. You get to have more. And it's not what I'm after, but that's what it becomes. And it's a beautiful thing. You don't even realize how it happens, but it happens slowly but surely. And watching people like you, Jonathan, lead the way in that and being able to push that on. And I know that you are that way. I know that if I reached out to you and said, hey, Jonathan, what about this? You would give me the advice in a heartbeat. And I love that. And that's what it's about.
Let me give you a very direct example of this. A friend of mine in Minnesota, who's now a area VP for a large auto group. He, when I met him, he was an internet salesperson when I met him 15 years ago or more. Now he's an area VP over an auto group for a large auto group. Anyways, he called me the day randomly, and he and I talk. It's not bizarre that he calls, but it's not common. But he called me up, and I'm like, hey, what's happening, buddy? He says, hey man, I'm sitting here with this trainer guy. And he's usually working with OEMs, but he wants to get on the retail side and work directly with dealers. And he's building an online platform. And he was asking me a bunch of questions about how to build his online platform and how to build his business and how to go after dealers instead of just the OEM. And anyway, he's like, and he was telling me, and I'm like, dude, I know the perfect guy you should be asking these questions to. So I'm sitting here with this guy here, and he's starting to build his business. And I want you to, could you just answer some questions for him? So tell him, how much did it cost for you to build your online platform? What did you invest? What were your rates? What do you charge dealers? And he's literally asking me to just kind of like open up my books to another trainer to tell that trainer exactly how I built my business to where I am. And what I loved about that conversation was not only that I was able to help this trainer and give him the information to grow his business, but that this GM Matt knew me well enough to know Jonathan is the kind of person who, if you want to compete against him, he will give you a map to do so.
Yeah.
And I just, that's what I wish more people operated from, was just Dave Anderson. Some of you may know that name. He has been closer to what you might call a mentor to me. Dave, in a very, very difficult season in my life, when I actually was being attacked by people, I had people that were trying to attack me, that were openly boasting that they were going to destroy my company. I had what you would call now haters, is what you would call I had haters. And I was going through a season where I had these haters, and I reached out to Dave for counsel. And Dave, being a good Christian brother, seeking wise counsel from him, he said, John, there's not a dealer on the planet that God has ordained you to serve that any man can disrupt that service.
Come on.
You know, there's not a person you're supposed to minister to that any man can stop you from ministering to. Do not worry about what they do. Worry on whether or not you're honoring God in what you do. And that wisdom in that moment was what I needed to not only forgive the people that were attacking me, but to truly walk out in forgiveness. You know, when scripture talks about loving your enemy, few of us have ever known what it's like to truly have an enemy, a person who seeks to destroy you. I had people boasting privately and publicly that they were seeking to destroy me and my business. And in that season, it was fascinating because resting in God's mercy, grace, and understanding of how to forgive and how to love what you would call an enemy was a wonderful season. And Dave's wisdom in that moment was exactly the word that I needed to set me free and to truly be able to continue to walk in abundance. There's not a single dealer that's supposed to be served by Sellchology that anyone or any market or any economy is going to block. You know, that's not how the economy I walk in works.
Amen. I am at church today and I'm feeling it, man. And I absolutely love this. This is what I needed. I'm excited. You know, I'm getting ready to start a new season of my life. I'm leaving the dealership. Saturday's my last day at the dealership. I put my 2 weeks in last Monday, and I'm super excited because then I'm going to be fully on that vendor side, right? And to know that there's people out there like Jonathan Dawson, where if I was a moment where I kind of get lost and I'm like, man, I don't know what path I need to take, I'm going to speak with Jonathan. And I know Jonathan would be that guy. He'll guide me. He'll probably tell me, listen to what God's telling you. You know, I know that he'll tell me that. But I'll be like, that's why I'm calling you, because he told me to call you. So that being said, I absolutely love where you're going. I love what you're about. And I love that you have mentorship and that you found heroes that you could look up to. I do the same thing. You know, before I got to meet you, you were my hero. You know, I look at you as a hero. I'm like, man, this guy's doing something similar to what I want to do. I love where he's gone. I want to be there one day. You know, I mentioned it to you when I first saw you in NIAD. I said, I just want to be the number 2 sales trainer in the world. And you said, well, you said it's so good. What I loved about what you said was I was number 2 at one point too. So that made my
I remember what it was like to be number 2.
That's what it was, right? And I absolutely love that because it's true. We all have our path. We all have our moments, and we get somewhere. You know, being number 2 is not a bad thing. Being number 3 is not. I want to be number 1, right? But at the same time, it's about what God wants me to do and where He wants me to be. And if I'm doing it to honor Him, and I'm doing it to honor Him in the best way I can with others, and show other people the way, then I'm doing it right. Whether I'm number 1, number 2, number 100 does not matter. I'm doing what I'm blessed to do, what I'm supposed to do through His grace, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to meet other people in this business who are on that same type of mentality. When I first got in this business almost 20 years ago, talking about God was kind of like, what are you doing? Right? Why are you? We don't talk about religion or politics at work. We don't do this or that. And then if you were a Christian, which Lou came into the business loud and proud as a Christian, he was made fun of quite a bit. People were like, okay, Lou, you're fake. They thought it was fake, you know, and it was like, dude, you can sell cars and still be a Christian. There's nothing wrong with that. And I've known this man for almost 20 years. I think literally I know where his heart is. I know that he's a good Christian man, that he cares about his family. He cares about his God, and he wants to honor his God. Right. And that's what I love about Lou. And that's why he is my business partner, my everything, you know, and those things are important to have people like that inside your life, and to have heroes like that inside your life, to see those and seek out for those. Eventually those heroes, if you put the work in, they recognize you and they will become your mentors. And it's a fact. So I'm glad that we have you here today talking about that. What a great subject.
This is powerful stuff, folks. And understand there's so many different layers to this walk. There's so many different layers to the things that we need to be encouraged and understand. Sometimes it takes the voice of a mentor or a friend to let you know what it is that should already be implanted inside of your heart. But we have to have those refreshers. Just one conversation with Daddy ain't enough. Okay, you need to have more. And here's the thing that I want to encourage so many of you at or with right now. He prepares a feast for you in the presence of your enemies. Okay, the word says that no weapon formed against you will prosper. If he be for you, no man can be against you.
Yeah.
So let me clear it again. That doesn't mean that no weapon will be formed. That doesn't mean that no weapons are going to be created.
Say again? It doesn't mean you won't be surrounded by enemies.
Exactly.
In the midst of your enemies, he will do this, but it doesn't mean you won't have them. It doesn't mean you won't be surrounded by them. Yeah, and I tell you what, I live that, because even as I read screenshots of conversations between some of these people conspiring that would be sent to me and say, look what so and so is boasting about or saying. And as I was reading these screenshots, initially, of course, weighed by them, but over time realizing, look at my business. Like, I'm literally, every time they get on Twitter and attack me, every time I do a show, I do a podcast, and they would get on the Twitter feed and they would just try to like undermine me on Twitter, and they'd get in the comments and try to undermine what I was doing, or make accusations. And it was all manner of things. It was accusations against my character, accusations against my business, accusations against my Christian walk. It didn't matter what it was, they were trying to undermine it. But like, I just looked at the numbers and I was like, huh, like, like for all their efforts to stop me and block me, somehow, stuff is still going. So yeah, I just would encourage people, not in my strength, not by my power, but to put your trust in God alone, and know that He's sovereign, He's good, He's just, He's faithful. And it's ultimately the character of God that should drive our decisions, not the character of other men.
Come on,
Amen.
that's what I'm talking about. And folks, hear that. I mean, again, that type of wisdom, I love it. Car Church, Wednesday mornings, 7:45. Make sure that you jump up in there. You'll hear more of Jonathan Dawson, some Alex Flores, Chris Martinez, all these incredible people. Yes. Will Ramsey talking about kingdom and trying to
Amen.
make sure that we operate inside of a kingdom understanding inside of this car business. But folks, again, no weapon formed against you will prosper, but they will be formed. Okay, Goliath was there to destroy David. David understood who it was that his God was, and understood that he stood no chance against him. Sometimes the giants in your life are only there to bring out the greatness.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
And
I love that.
I want to encourage each and every one of you, listen to what it is that he's saying. Rewind this on the replay and get some of that. But I want to ask you, Jonathan, so you had a 3-car month, you were fired, you fought your way back in, you've had many, many people speak against you, you watched the business go up in the midst of it all, taking a lot of hits on the chin, taking a lot of slugs in the gut. What has been the hardest lesson that Jonathan Dawson has had to learn inside of this pursuit?
I will say, like, if you rewound the clock and just played it out on the timeline, and you had like an emotional scale that just kind of rated emotional peaks, highs, and lows, I would say that season where I was being attacked was definitely one of the most challenging seasons of my career, because I felt like it was so unjust. I felt like it was so unfair. I felt like it was so uncalled for. And quite frankly, one of the hardest things about it was, like, none of the people that were attacked, it's not like it was a client who could say, we paid John and he defrauded us, or none of them, not a single one of them was a client ever. Not a single one of them had even been a student ever. Not one of them were salespeople under my tutelage who said, I sat through a class with Dawson and he, lied or taught me to lie. Like, it was all these kind of, like I said, these peripheral people who had no real relationship with me at all, but had a perception of me. And I'm grateful to say, and again, God is so good. I'm grateful to say that God has redeemed, restored, and reconciled almost all of my haters, who are now in my phone as friends. We text, talk, many of whom, through humility and grace, reached out to me and said, would you forgive me? And God has brought us to a place of reconciliation. So I'm I want to bring some closure to that part of the story. God has restored and reconciled and redeemed many of those relationships to this point. So I'm very, very honored that God did that, and that was possible. But that was definitely one of the harder lessons, was to truly love an enemy, to truly trust in God and love an enemy. That would definitely be one of them. But I'll give you another one as well, as a speaker trainer, that was a really challenging one for me, which is learning this lesson here. And this is more of a kind of, again, a life lesson, which is my role and responsibility is to cast the seed and to water, but it is God who brings the increase. My job is to preach the good news in the gospel, but not to actually save anyone. So even though my mission statement says I'm on a mission to save the world one salesperson at a time, I do not confuse myself with a savior, because I am not actually the one who saves anyone. One of the harder lessons for me was, I was at a dealership, and I was in my pride, I confess, in my pride, I was convinced that if people would just listen to what I had to say, if you would literally just do what I'm talking about, then the store would be better, you'd be better, everybody would win. And I remember being at a dealership and just sensing that the room didn't care. Like there was this aura of indifference in the room. And I remember feeling like, this is, 15 years ago or something, but I remember feeling like, I cannot believe I left my house. I traveled all the way here. Your dealer brought me in and none of you give a damn. None of you care. None of you want this. Like, I remember feeling indignant about it. And I sat down with the general manager who was the owner and I said, hey, he's like, what do you think? I said, my advice is fire them all. I'd fire every one of those guys. And what was interesting about that moment, that I had not closed the door behind me and someone had overheard me say that. And in that moment, I felt self-righteous. I felt convinced of my own righteousness. Like I'm right, they're all wrong. They deserve no grace. What they deserve is an axe. And as I was telling the owner, I'd fire every one of these guys. They're useless. I realized afterwards when I found out from the owner that they were canceling the contract, he said, John, look, turns out the guys heard what you had said and they don't want you back. And at first I was like, well, your store's idiots and you got a store full of idiots anyway. So why would I care to work with you idiots, right? So in the beginning, like in my initial emotional reaction was, well, see, that just proves my point that your tail wags dog. But later upon reflection, what I realized was that I was operating from this place of the judgment seat, right? We all have this judgment seat that's so comfortable to sit in, to judge other people's weaknesses according to our strengths, to look at another person's weakness. And from our position of strength, to see down, to condescend to that person and to see them as less and to make a judgment on them in that moment. Now, I remember my heart was in the wrong place. I do think that there was a lot of indifference in the room and I do feel like that culture was unhealthy. And so, but my heart was one of judgment. And so one of the hardest lessons I learned was that it is not my place to actually judge any of these people that God puts in front of me. That's not my place. That just because I think I know what they should do does not mean that I am their Lord. I don't lord over them. I share lessons with them, but I don't lord over them. So that was a hard lesson as a speaker. You seek prominence. One of the hardest things, again, about being in a position like this where you're given prominence is your pride so quickly puffs up. You read your own press clippings, as my friend Frank Crinity says all the time, and you just become convinced of yourself. You walk like you're taller than others. You walk like you're smarter than others. You boast. It's very easy, even in when we jest about I remember what it was like to be second. Even in jesting like that, I'm cautious of that because I don't actually consider myself the number one of anything. I don't know that I'm number one. Again, it depends on what you want. And I feel like I have some gifts. I feel like I'm pretty darn good at it, but I don't seek to be number one in the world of anything. I want to know that what I did was right. I want to know that what I did honored God. I want to know that in the moment I was a good steward. I want to be faithful. That's what I want to do. And whether that's an audience of 3, 30, 3,000, 30,000 one day, if God gives me that opportunity, the hardest lesson I have learned is it's not about me. When I name Sellchology, and this is not a knock at other trainers, so please don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to throw shade. But if you think about almost every other training company, the name of the trainer is the name of the company. Almost every one of them. And again, this is a personal decision I made when I said, I'm going to name this Sellchology. I did it intentionally as a suppression of my pride because I don't want it to be about me. I don't want it to be Jonathan Dawson Enterprises. I want it to be something that's transferable, that's not about me. I want it to be about what it is, which is selling through psychology. And that's what I want to be prominent. And obviously I get to be the spokesperson, but I don't want it to ultimately just be the Jonathan Dawson show. I want as bad as I can, as hard as I want. I want it to not be about me. But I tell you, it's one of the hardest things I struggle with because it's so easy when you receive such praise and honor as you've given me today. It's so easy to think it's about me. And that's probably the other hard lesson I've learned.
Wow. That's very powerful. And, absolutely love it. Not his place to judge, and It's true. You know, it's our place to coach. We can do those things. We could do all these other things. We can honor. We can try to help. We can do all, but you cannot judge people. You know, you never know what their real story is, what kind of lenses they're looking through. You know, we have experiences in life that are so different. You know, Lou and I, completely different people, different lives, the way we grew up. So we look at things differently, even now. Granted, we've come together. We look at business very similar. We do a lot of things very similar. But at the end of the day, if something hits me, it might impact me completely different than it would him because of a past experience. So you have to understand that you can't judge people based off of your experiences. They all live their own life. They all have had their own path that they've come up to. I love that, Jonathan. That's powerful.
Oh, absolutely. There's a key that we want to make sure that we utilize to open up doors inside of each and every car guy and car gal that's out there. And that's that being humble doesn't necessarily mean that you think low of yourself. It just means that you think of yourself less. And when you have a person like Jonathan that is trying to not just build his business, not just build the stores that he teams up with, not just build the reputation of an industry, but to also go to the next level in helping other people understand that we should each be empowering each other. And as we keep jumping into that judgment conversation, right? It is easy for us to sit inside of that chair. That is a comfy, cozy seat, especially when we feel like we have things together. And the important thing that we're supposed to do, it's look at everybody through a lens of love.
Amen.
Make sure that what we do is we count the grace that's been given to us and we extend that back to the people that we're dealing with, because you don't know their story. I don't care if it's the customer that screwed up everything that there is on their bureau. Your 300s and below, it's very easy to laugh at them. It's very easy for you to nitpick and say what is wrong with that customer, when at the same time, you don't have people inside of your face with fingers pointed at you for what you're doing. I caution you, car guys, car gals, and solutionaries, never join forces with the accuser. Never jump on the same side as somebody pointing a finger of what's wrong with somebody else. Be the very first to turn that back to you to say, hey, this is where I messed up. This is what I had to learn. And maybe you can relate with this, but maybe you can learn from this. And I appreciate your vulnerability.
Man, I appreciate the honesty here. You know, he's been dropping nothing but honest. Just he's told us about his getting fired. He's told us about his 3-car month, folks.
Come on.
I can tell you. I mean, I've told people my story. I had a 1-car month once. I can't believe I did not get fired.
I was there.
He was there. It was the most embarrassing month of my life. I didn't work at all. I'll be honest. I did nothing that whole month. I played poker and I threw coins against the wall if you can get the closest, right? But that being said, big mistake. It's good to be honest with yourself. And that's what I love about Jonathan. You know, we've talked about his whys. He had 3 of those. We talked about how he got in this business, how before he was a sales trainer when it came to door-to-door sales. He was the top guy there. He said, you know what? He heard a voice at a bank that said, listen, go work at a car dealership. I love that, man. It was like amazing, right? And he does that. And he goes in and he tells us a story about his failures. He told about his mentorships, his people he considered heroes, his friends. He's talked about his greatest failure. But the one thing that I'm really curious about, out of all the stuff that you've done, Jonathan, out of all the work that you put in, man, and you put a lot of work in over these years, man, and we appreciate it. And we've been watching it, and I love what you're doing. You know, you've done this, and now you're this, and you deserve all that, man. And it's a beautiful thing, because you're really gracing other people and showing people how to do it, and you're helping uplift this business is what we're all about, upshifting and uplifting, right, Lou?
That's right.
And that's the thing. And what I want to ask you is, out of all the things that you've done, what has been the greatest reward that you've taken from all this?
Wow. So it's definitely, again, going back to that analogy of, there was a line with emotional peaks and highs, and you think back about that and you look back on your time. I'll give you a few that are up there. One of them was, for sure, getting that call from my original dealer, who hired me, then fired me, then gave me a second chance, then watched me sell. When he said to me, John, I asked the team whether or not they'd be comfortable with you coming back as the trainer to teach them. And he relayed to me a message. He said, one of the top guys there said, John, one of the biggest regrets I have is watching John do what he did right next to me and never asking him how he did it. So, when my owner told me that and invited me back, I mean, you think about like these people legitimately watched me sell cars alongside them. They saw me get hired and fired. Then they saw what I did after that. And they saw the way that I sold and the way that I eventually outsold them and did it in a short period of time of under 2 years, taking people who had been at the same store for over a decade and passing them up by self-generating my traffic and creating referrals and so forth. And so definitely one of the emotional highlights of my entire career has been the honor of my team trusting me because they saw my character and saying, I want him to come back and now be our trainer. So that definitely is it. Another great highlight was when Toyota contacted me. When Toyota, as an OEM, contacted me and said, "Hey, we've been following your work. We'd like you to come up and provide training for Toyota. It'll be part of the certification program through Toyota." Because again, I was a salesman for Toyota. I mean, I went to Toyota certification classes. And so again, to stand in front of a room with, cameras and a sales team and know that I'm at Toyota's training center and I'm facilitating a class that future Toyota salespeople will be privy to, that was another massive highlight of my career for sure. And then I would say one of the ones that sticks with me the most is a story of a man named Tom Anderson. Tom was a gentleman that I met briefly at a dealership. Just to give you an idea how far back we're going, he was at a Plaza Pontiac in Omaha, Nebraska, Pontiac dealership. Okay, so this is a minute ago. So I was calling on dealerships selling tickets to an event, and I stopped at the store, and Tom greeted me at the front of the dealership, standing out on the point. And he said, "Hi, sir, can I help you? This thing's," and I said, "Actually, I'm here to speak to your general manager." He's like, "Oh, well, really? What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I have a training event coming through town, and I'm going to be inviting you guys to come to my training class. And so I'd like to speak to him about inviting you guys." He says, "Oh my God, really? Are we going to get training? That's so awesome." He's like, "Man, I could really use it. I've been doing this for a while now, but I don't know what I'm stuck, and I'm really struggling. So I really hope they sign up, and I'm that's great. And here's who you asked for." So I walked in the store and got completely blown out. Just, rudely, the general manager had no time for me. So I was there for like 10, 15 minutes and got blown out. Wasn't interested at all. And on the way out, Tom says, "Hey, so did that work? Am I going to be going? Are we going to go?" And I said, "Unfortunately, man, no, I can't invite you guys because your dealer, general manager, didn't want to participate." He's like, "Please don't tell me that, man. I really need help." And I said, "Listen, man, I'm about to go on my lunch break. Walk with me to my car." So we stood by my car and I taught him 3 techniques, if you will, 3 strategies. I said, "Just do these 3 things, Tom. Do these 3 things with every customer going forward. These 3 things, just do these 3 things." And I role played with them for like 30 minutes on the parking lot by my car. I got in my car. He asked for my card. I gave him my card. I got in the car and drove away. And that was, that was it. Went away. Fast forward, that would have been probably early in the year. So that would have been in like maybe springtime when that occurred. It was now like November, maybe December, but it was Christmas time. So it would have been like maybe early December. I get a call from a number. It shows up on caller ID. I don't know it. And I pick up the phone and he says, "Hi, is this Mr. Dawson?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is Tom Anderson." And he says, you don't remember me probably. And I said, "No, actually, I do remember you. You were Plaza Pontiac, right?" And we role played by my car. He said, yeah, that's me. And he said, "I got to tell you something." He said, "That year that I met you, that previous year, I couldn't afford a Christmas tree for my family. I couldn't put up a single Christmas tree in my house." He said, "I want you to know, after I met you, I sold 21 cars the next month, sold 22 the next month, and I've sold over 20 every month since then."
Wow.
He said, "I want you to know, every room in my house has a Christmas tree because of you.
Come on.
Every room."
Come on.
And he said, "I just want you to know that." And that was the moment. That was one of the moments, but that was the moment really when I said, "That's what I need to do. I need to find one Tom Anderson a year. God, give me one Tom Anderson a year, and I will do this till I die." And so I definitely put that up there. That's got to be one of the moments, one of the things I look back on.
Yeah.
And there's been, thankfully, thousands since. I mean, really, there has moments like that where people would send a message or call. Had a gentleman, Chris, who reached out to me. I had met him at a dealership, same kind of thing. I met him at a store, just stopped in, again, same thing, called on the store. No one had time for me. This guy said, Can we talk? We talked. He called me. I want to say again, it's something like 9 months later. It was a while ago. After that, he called me up one day, and he said, my wife has left me. My kids are gone. I've lost my car. I've lost my job. I'm being evicted. I'm literally packing up boxes. I'm about to be homeless. He said, I have two things in my hand. One is a gun, and one is your business card. And I decided, oh, man. He said, I decided to call you. Can we talk? And I'm so grateful that there's been moments where a dealer said no, but a salesperson said talk. So anyway,
We love you, John. We love you, brother.
Those are the rewards. That's the reward.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And
Hey, man, thanks for that question. That's a good question.
man, we thank you for being so candid and so just open with us. And man, you really goosebumps the whole since you started speaking about it, man. I've had nothing but goosebumps and emotionals. I think that everybody who's watching feels the same emotions. We all love you. We love your heart. We love the people that you've been able to touch. And we love that the people have been able to reach out to you and give you opportunities to help them. And that's the key. You know, folks, if for all you out there who are struggling and you don't know where to go, reach out. There's so many people that will help. There's people like Jonathan Dawson everywhere. Jonathan Dawson is an amazing soul. He's somebody that if you know him and you get to know him, he's going to know you. He'll remember you. You know, think about that. Is Jonathan a year later, John calls him and he's like, you know, they're talking and Tom Anderson's like, hey, you remember me? And he's like, yeah, we're at Pontiac. We're sitting there talking. We talked, you know, we did some role playing and he remembered that. And but the most important thing is that 30 minutes that you spent with that person. Folks, you don't realize how impactful you can be just by having a conversation with somebody who's in the pits. Right. Just speak with them, share your heart, give them what you can. Money is not what the world's about. That's not what makes the world turn. Love is what makes the world turn. And the more love you put out there, the more you will receive. And it's once again, it's not about what you receive. It's about what you put out there because you will receive. That is the way God works. But understand, you have to love. And John, I love you. And I appreciate what you've done. I love what you're doing and how you're impacting, and you're going to continue to impact as long as God will allow, right? And I know I pray that it's a very fruitful and very bountiful and a very long life of Jonathan Dawson out there with Sellchology doing amazing things. And I know Sellchology isn't where it's ending. There's still so much more from you that's going to come out and we're going to see. And I'm looking forward to learning more and more about that. Jonathan, you put goosebumps on me. I've never had a goosebump during. So it's the first time I've had goosebumps on my show, folks. And Jonathan, I appreciate that. That's my greatest reward of the day so far, sitting here with Jonathan and hearing these stories, getting me blessed. You're making me look forward to my future season, looking forward to what I'm going to be able to do, how I'm going to be able to impact other people, how I'm going to have my Tom Anderson, you know, and that's a beautiful thing. One a year and it'll do everything for you. And it's so true. Jonathan, I love you, man. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for gracing us and blessing us with your time today, because time is valuable. We talked about that. When he asked me today, how long is the show? I said 30 to 45 minutes. Look, we're an hour and 13 minutes in, and I don't want it to end. I love Jonathan so much. I want to be here all day with this guy. All three of us love talking, so we know how we can keep this thing going forever. Here's the thing. Jonathan, you honored us.
Yes, you did.
My audience is definitely blessed to have you here today. I'm sure that they felt something here. I know that there's some people commenting about how their heart's feeling and how they're getting choked up and how they're touching lives and the whole thing, you know, sales, like Chris Youngren says, Tom Anderson's is why we do sales training 100%. Right. And Jonathan Dawson's why I see that there's a beautiful future for us out there. So I thank you so much for putting in all the work that you put in. So you blazed a path for people like Lou and I to go out and try to help and do the same thing and know that this path is a good path. Being a godly man, being a man of faith, being a man that wants to help people, not make money, but help people. That's what it's about. And I love that about you, Jonathan. That is why we wanted to have you on our show. That's why we wanted to honor you on our show. And we are so thankful to have you on our show. So
grateful. Car guys, car gals, all you people that are out there that are listening and that are receiving from this, I want to encourage you again, understand that he gives seed to the sower. And sometimes it's an entire group. And sometimes you'll win the whole dealership if you're on the vendor. And sometimes you just need to win one. But whatever it is, that seed that gets put into your hand, be freely willing to give it. This life that we have is a gift. Every gift that you have is designed to be given back out. And dropping 3 pieces in a parking lot on your way to lunch to see somebody else's life transformed and to see that actually brought back a harvest to Jonathan that has him on the Car Guy Coffee podcast talking about the glory of God inside of his business and the harvest that he's reaped back is just showing you that sometimes you just got to let the seeds out of your hand, let time do what it needs to do, and you will reap a harvest that you cannot even imagine. And inside of this room, we've been sowing seeds for the Car Guy Coffee inside of the industry, and we stepped out in faith, and it brought us to a moment where we're sharing right now, where we can glean from a brother that is doing great things in the industry, blessing so many other people, and we get the opportunity to do the same. You now are responsible, car guys and car gals and solutionaries, for the seeds that are inside of your hands. Let them go. Sow them. It is not your responsibility to bring the growth, but it is your responsibility to sow. So I encourage you, let those things out of your hand. I have had an incredible time today. I'm going to go back, listen to this again and again. I almost got, I was like, right. It was
no,
right there.
I literally goosebumps
right
and I was like,
it's like, oh man,
don't do it.
Go.
But Jonathan, you bring out emotions. I see why you're a powerful speaker. Once again, we're going to close this out, but I wanted people to understand, if you haven't had a chance to see Jonathan speak, go find a place that he's speaking and be there. He goes to all these major events. If you want to come out and check him out, make sure you do, because I'm going to tell you something. You will learn something very fast. And he wants to teach you. He wants the business to be better. He wants car people to do well, because this business is a beautiful business. We don't want the Carvanas to take over. We don't want none of that. We want, and here's why. It's I love what they're doing, but I love what we as humans do. We help each other. We give each other a touch. We love each other. There's something about that human feeling, and not computer screen feeling. It's a human feeling. I wish I was there with Jonathan right now. I'd be giving him a big old hug, telling him how much I love him, right? And he'd be hugging me right back, lifting me up like I'm a little kid. Like, what do I do? But I love you, Jonathan. Thank you for being here on the show. Thank you for sharing everything. And man,
is there anything else you have to pour inside of these cups as we get ready to take away from this cafe?
I would just say to those who call Jesus their Lord, honor God with your day, honor him with your time, seek to be a good steward of your testimony. And part of that is the way you work at the dealership, working unto the Lord and not unto men. If you do not yet have a relationship with Christ, if he's not your Lord, if he's not your Savior, if he's not in your heart, then I would just encourage you, as I have my last opportunity here, to seek God and ask him to share and reveal the gospel to you. Ask God to speak to you and reveal who he is to you. And because if anything, if I help the dealership sell 10,000 cars, they all turn to rust one day. If I help one person find Jesus, I'll be able to dance with him in heaven for eternity. So ultimately, that's what I would love to see anybody do, is draw closer to God. But I do think again, to the opportunity you guys created here for a platform, I thank you for your time. I thank you for allocating this time for me and creating an opportunity for me to answer some questions and share some stories that obviously drug up some stuff within me, and I appreciate that. Love everybody. I'm just a man on a mission to save the world one salesperson at a time. I want to teach salespeople how to build a business where they're truly celebrated instead of merely tolerated, how to out-experience the competition and create raving fan advocates. And if you're looking for me, I'm looking for you. I'm easy to find. I'm all over the web like Spider-Man. So find me if you're looking for me, and let's talk.
Absolutely. Car guys and car gals and all you solutionaries. Did you hear that? Did you hear what he just said? That's a great line. I'm going to love that. I'm all over the web like Spider-Man.
I never heard that before. I love that one too.
That is fantastic. Man. But folks, listen, we are about to close this up. We have had an incredible time with the incredible friend of ours, Jonathan Dawson. I am so grateful that we had the chance to just learn, get a little deeper with him, open up his 5-liner with you, and go to the next level. I can't wait to the follow-up. I can't wait to see you again. And brother, I am so honored that you consistently show Christ first and foremost. And that, at the heart of everything, folks, is the cornerstone. We must live our life that way. And if you don't know him, I am very, very honored to make an introduction. You can call each and every one of us, and we would be glad to bring you to the throne and let you meet your creator. But for this night, for this day, we are excited that we get the chance to go jam out, vibe out a little bit, go solve some transportation problems, upshift and uplift an industry, and consistently brew solutions. I am Lou Ramirez, the car guy.
And I'm Fred Lenartz, the subprime hero.
And we have been brewing solutions on the Car Guy Coffee Podcast with the one,
The only Jonathan Dawson!
Woo!
Man,
Appreciate it all.
God
Check
is
us out.
good. God is good.
CarGuyCoffee.com.